The drilling shut down at 3 a.m. I was reviewing core sample data in my quarters when the sensors triggered, their shrill alert cutting through the constant noise of the Nautilus Prime's engines. The monitors flashed red, not the standard warning indicators we'd grown accustomed to at these depths, but a pattern I'd never seen in 15 years of deep-sea research. "Dr. Harding to the bridge," the intercom sounded. Captain Roberts' voice carried an edge that made me set down my coffee. I made my way through the corridors, the metal floor grating beneath my feet. The bridge was dark except for the glow of instruments and screens. Roberts hovered over the main console, his weathered face illuminated by cascading numbers. "Look at these readings," he said without looking up. "The quantum field detector array is showing massive displacement values. Started the moment we hit 4,000 meters. I leaned in, studying the streams of data. The numbers didn't make sense. Gravitational fluctuations that defied every model I'd ever worked with. "Pull up the visual feed from the drilling head." The main screen powered on, showing the murky depths illuminated by our underwater lights. The drill bit had stopped just short of the sea floor, surrounded by swirling sediment. But behind that curtain of rubble, something caught my eye. "Enhance grid sector 7, I said, pointing to a dark patch that seemed to absorb our lights rather than reflect them. The image zoomed in, revealing a perfect geometric depression in the ocean floor. "That's not natural formation," Roberts muttered. I ran calculations through the ship's computer, cross-referencing our position with known geological features. "There's nothing in the databases about structural anomalies in this region, and these readings—" I shook my head. "The mass displacement values suggest there's both more and less matter there than there should be. It's a mathematical impossibility." Over the next few hours, we ran every diagnostic we had from the ship's control room, but the equipment checked out. This was real. I transmitted the initial data package to our project oversight committee, a hefty file of sensor readings and preliminary analysis that would require careful review on their end. By morning, the entire research team had assembled in the vessel's main conference room, the gentle roll of the ocean, swaying coffee cups on the table. Dr. Park, our geologist, presented his analysis of the core samples taken before the shutdown. "The sediment layers are undisturbed until exactly 4,007 meters. Then they just stop, like they hit an invisible wall." I pulled up the latest sensor readings. "The field distortions are maintaining perfect symmetry. Nature doesn't work like that. This is engineered." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. We were looking at something that couldn't exist according to our understanding of physics. Yet there it was, 4 kilometers beneath us. The committee's response arrived by early afternoon. "Proceed with caution. Deploy remotely operated drone for closer inspection. Maintain hourly updates." I supervised the drone launch personally, modifying its sensors to gather more detailed data. It reached the anomaly zone at 1547. The video feed showed the depression more clearly now. A perfect bowl carved into the seafloor, its surface smooth as glass. But it was the sensor data that made my hands shake. The readings formed patterns I'd only seen theorized in papers about spatial distortions and Einstein-Rosen bridges. "It's a wormhole," I whispered. "A stable wormhole." We pushed the drone closer. The depression deepened, the bottom receding faster than our descent rate should allow. The sensors were going haywire, showing gravitational lensing effects that belonged in the center of a black hole, not the bottom of the Pacific. "Pull it back," Roberts ordered as warning lights flashed across the control panel. "We're losing telemetry." Before we could reverse thrust, something changed. The video feed distorted, showing what looked like a mirror image of the drone, but wrong somehow. Reversed. Then the signal cut out completely. We spent the next 12 hours preparing the deep-sea research pod. If I was right about what we'd found, we needed human eyes on it. The DSRP-7 was our most advanced submersible, designed to withstand the crushing pressures at maximum ocean depth. We equipped it with every sensor we could fit, including a prototype quantum field detector I'd been saving for special cases. I volunteered to pilot it myself. This was my field, my discovery. Roberts argued, but eventually agreed under the condition that we maintain constant communication and abort at the first sign of trouble. The descent felt eternal. I watched through the reinforced viewport as the water became darker, the ship's lights above fading to a distant glow. The pod's external floods illuminated particles floating in the water like stars in space. The comparison felt appropriate. We were venturing into an unknown as vast as any galaxy. At 3,900 meters, the detector began to sing. There's no other word for it. The readings oscillated in perfect harmonic patterns, creating an audio output that filled the pod's cabin. I checked the numbers appearing on my screens. They described something that should tear reality apart, yet here it was, stable and waiting. The depression came into view at 4,000 meters. From inside the pod, I could see what our previous instruments had missed. The surface wasn't just smooth, it rippled with mathematical precision, like space itself was being folded and unfolded according to some cosmic algorithm. Beginning final approach, I reported to the surface. Field strength increasing exponentially but remaining stable. Gravitational readings suggest localized space-time curvature consistent with a Morris-Thorne wormhole configuration. I maneuvered the pod closer to the anomaly's center. The water there seemed to bend, creating reflections of my lights. As I watched, a perfect sphere of darkness formed, expanding slowly until it filled my view. "Deploying probe," I announced. The small device launched from the pod's exterior arm, trailing a fiber optic tether. It disappeared into the darkness. For 3 minutes and 17 seconds, nothing happened. Then the probe's signal came back online. The data it transmitted made me forget to breathe. "Surface, are you receiving this?" I asked. "Confirmed," Roberts' voice came through the comm. "What are we looking at, Oliver?" I studied the readings, double and triple checking my calculations. The probe had emerged into another body of water, identical in pressure and composition to our location. But the signature was phase-shifted, like a musical note played in a different key. "It's another Earth," I said. "The probe is transmitting from another version of this exact spot, but..." I paused, looking at the biological sensors. "There's something wrong with the readings. According to this, there's no organic material in the water, not even bacteria." I sat there in the pod, surrounded by tons of pressurized water, staring into a hole that shouldn't exist. We had found a door, and now we had to decide whether to walk through it. The probe's data continued to stream in, painting a picture of a mirror world devoid of life. "Requesting permission to extend mission duration," I said. "We need to gather more data before the next phase." There was a long pause before Roberts responded. "Granted, but stay at current depth. We need time to process what we're looking at." I spent the next hour recording every measurement I could think of, watching the wormhole's perfect geometry mock our understanding of physics. As my shift drew to a close, I couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery wasn't an accident. The mathematical precision, the stability of the anomaly, it all suggested purpose. We had found a wormhole beneath the ocean, but I was beginning to suspect it had wanted to be found. As the pod began its ascent, I marked the coordinates carefully in my log. We would be back tomorrow, better prepared and with new questions. But as I watched the anomaly disappear into the darkness below, one thought kept circling through my mind. What if it's not just a door? What if it's a trap? The probe data kept me awake all night. Every measurement confirmed what seemed impossible. An identical Earth existing alongside our own, separated by mere quantum states. But it was the water samples that truly unsettled me. No microorganisms, no plankton, not even viral particles. Just pure, sterile H2O with trace minerals. Dawn found me back in the submersible, descending toward the anomaly. This time, I wasn't alone. Dr. Park sat beside me, his geology background essential for what we planned next. The pod carried additional sampling equipment and a reinforced tether system, our lifeline back to our reality. Field strength holding steady, Park noted as we approached the wormhole. No sign of deterioration in the matrix. I guided us closer than before. The sphere of darkness had grown by exactly 1.3 micrometers since yesterday, a fact I kept to myself for now. The pod's exterior cameras captured the way space bent around the anomaly's edge, creating fractal patterns that repeated at every scale. Beginning transition sequence, I announced to the surface team. Our check-in schedule was precise, every 30 seconds during the crossing. The slightest deviation would trigger an emergency retrieval. I eased the pod forward. The darkness engulfed us gradually, like sinking into ink. For 3.7 seconds, every instrument went dead. Then they rebooted simultaneously as we emerged on the other side. The transition complete, I checked our instruments. The sonar returns came back clean. Too clean. Usually at these depths, our acoustic imaging would pick up countless biological signatures, from fish to microscopic marine snow. But here, nothing broke the perfect uniformity of the water column. Our detectors, calibrated to catch even the faintest organic light sources, registered absolute zero. The seafloor topology matched our side exactly, but the resemblance felt wrong. Like looking at a photograph where all the subtle details had been erased. No bacterial mats, no feeding trails, no signs of the constant biological activity that normally marks the deep ocean floor. Initial readings confirm environment matches probe data, Park reported. Water pressure 40.1 megapascals, temperature 2.1 degrees Celsius, identical to our side. We ascended slowly, gathering samples at 100-meter intervals. Each one told the same story. Perfect chemical composition, zero biological content. When we reached the thermocline at 1,000 meters, the temperature shift matched our world exactly. But without the usual explosion of marine life such boundaries attract. The surface, when we reached it, drove home the reality of our situation. The same sun hung in the same sky, but the ocean was dead. No birds, no wave-riding plants. When we opened the top hatch after surfacing, the air lacked even the typical briny scent of the ocean. Surface team, we're initiating Phase 2, I transmitted back through the wormhole. The signal degraded exactly 4.2%, just as our models predicted. Proceeding to coastal navigation. We had chosen this location carefully. The nearest landfall was an unnamed island about 6 kilometers east. According to satellite data from our Earth, it hosted an automated research station maintained by the Pacific Ocean Observation Network. The island appeared exactly where it should be. The research station stood intact, its solar panels glinting in the sunlight. But as we approached the small dock, the differences became apparent. A layer of undisturbed dust covered everything. Inside, nothing was damaged or disturbed. Empty coffee cups sat on desks, screens displayed frozen data feeds, and chairs remained pulled back from workstations as if their occupants had simply vanished. The air was stale but breathable. We found the first hard drive in the main computer lab. Its storage arrays were designed to withstand electromagnetic disruption. Whatever had sterilized this world hadn't affected it. Park kept watch while I connected our portable decoder. The files were intact, but encoded. As the decryption program ran, I explored the facility. Every room told the same story. Life interrupted in an instant. No signs of panic or evacuation. The decoder chimed. The first files were atmospheric sensor logs from the day everything ended. They showed normal readings until 1542 local time. Then a pattern emerged that made my hands shake. Quantum field fluctuations identical to those we were measuring around the wormhole. "Dr. Harding," Park called from another room. "You need to see this." He had found the station's backup servers. Among the files was a video log from Dr. James Morrison, the station's physicist. The timestamp showed it was recorded moments before the event. The man on screen looked exhausted, frightened. Final log entry. "We've confirmed our worst fears about the anomalies." He glanced at something off camera. The entity. It doesn't invade or attack, it harvests. Reality itself is its food source. The wormholes are its web. The video quality degraded as he continued. We detected it too late. The warning signs were there. Anomalies in deep water, perfect geometric patterns where they shouldn't exist. By the time we understood what they meant, he looked up sharply. It's starting. The calculations are in file Theta 9. The pattern's there. The video ended. We spent the next hours downloading everything we could. The storage drives were heavy, but their contents were worth more than gold. As we worked, I noticed something that hadn't registered before. The dust on every surface formed patterns. Not random accumulation, but precise geometric shapes that mimicked the fractals around the wormhole. Time to go, I said, securing the last drive. We have what we need. The return journey felt longer. Every splash against the pod's hull made me flinch, knowing now what empty water truly meant. We transmitted preliminary findings through the wormhole ahead of us, but kept the worst parts for secure briefing. Back on our Earth, the team gathered in the ship's secure conference room. I connected the recovered drives to an isolated system and began sifting through the data. Most files were corrupted, but what remained painted a clear picture. The entity, as Morrison called it, moved between realities like a predator swimming between reefs. It created wormholes as lures, drawing attention from civilizations advanced enough to notice them. Then it would feed, converting all organic matter in that reality into energy in an instant. The ship's sensors registered a new reading. The wormhole's aperture had grown another micrometer in the past hour. The fractal patterns in its signature were becoming more complex. I spent that night on the bridge, watching the ocean through the windows. Somewhere out there, fish swam, whales sang, and countless microorganisms continued their ancient dances. Life, in all its messy, chaotic beauty. Life that another Earth had lost in less time than it takes to draw a breath. The recovered data proved what I'd suspected from the start. The wormhole wasn't a natural phenomenon or a scientific miracle. It was a hook, baited with our own curiosity, waiting for us to bite. Now we had to figure out how to cut the line before whatever cast it reeled us in. I hadn't slept in 36 hours. The recovered data from Morrison's facility demanded constant attention, each decoded file revealing another piece of a puzzle I wished we'd never found. The ship's lab had become my world, its screens filled with analysis of both our ongoing sensor readings and the Earth's data archives. The first breakthrough came at 3 a.m. While cross-referencing their geological surveys with our own readings, I noticed something in their deep core samples. The Earth's rock layers told a story, one written in precisely altered atomic structures. "Dr. Park," I called over the intercom, "I need your expertise in the lab." He arrived still wearing his sleep clothes. I pointed to the magnified cross-sections on the main screen. "Look at these patterns in their geological record. What do you make of them?" Park studied the images, his exhaustion vanishing. "These aren't natural formations. The atomic structure has been deliberately altered." He adjusted the scanning resolution. "And look at the dating. We're seeing identical patterns repeated every few million years in their Earth's history." We spent the next hours analyzing core samples from different depths. Each layer told the same story, geometric patterns appearing in the rock, persisting for a brief period, then stopping abruptly. The earliest examples dated back 300 million years. "It was testing their world," Park said, laying out the timeline, waiting for something. The ship's sensors interrupted our work. New distortions had appeared in the Mariana Trench and Sunda Trench. I pulled up the readings, feeling my stomach drop. The patterns matched exactly with the geometric structures we'd found in the Earth's geological record. "Surface team to the lab, immediately," I announced over the ship-wide comm. "We have a situation." While waiting for the others, I discovered something crucial in Morrison's files. Their research team had detected signatures from multiple realities bleeding through the wormhole in their final days. Their sensors had recorded fragments of data, echoes from other worlds experiencing the same phenomenon simultaneously across different quantum states. Captain Roberts arrived with the rest of the team as I decoded more of their findings. Talk to me, Harding. What are we looking at? A pattern across parallel Earths, I said, displaying the data streams. Their sensors picked up signals from other versions of Earth encountering these same anomalies. The wormholes don't just connect to one Earth, they're intersection points between multiple realities. The evidence was in their quantum readings. In their final days, their scientists had detected and partially decoded these cross-dimensional signals. Each showed the same progression we were experiencing now, the appearance of wormholes, the spreading geometric patterns, the increasing time dilation effects. We deployed the reality anchor beacons, massive devices designed to stabilize quantum fields. The readings they sent back confirmed my fears. Time dilation was occurring around the wormholes, microsecond variations getting stronger by the hour. I documented each test methodically. A precision atomic clock placed 1 kilometer from the anomaly stayed true. The same model placed within 100 meters lost 3 microseconds per hour. Within 10 meters, the drift increased exponentially. The space-time distortions are spreading, I reported during the emergency briefing. The entity isn't just arriving, it's preparing our reality for consumption. Our first attempt to collapse the wormhole failed. We focused concentrated energy pulses at its event horizon, hoping to destabilize it. Instead, the energy dispersed in fractal patterns that precisely matched formations found in the other Earth's rock layers. The quantum entanglement between our worlds became stronger. Sensors detected points where both realities existed simultaneously, microscopic regions where the laws of physics themselves seemed to overlap. Park discovered the final piece at midnight. In the other Earth's deepest core samples, we found trace radiation with a signature matching our current anomalies. Dating showed it appeared exactly 1 week before their world went dark. We have 72 hours, I announced, showing the correlation. The entity doesn't invade physically. It uses the wormholes to solve each universe's wave function equation. Once it has the complete pattern, it can collapse all possible versions of our reality. Roberts finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. I took the submersible down for another observation run. The wormhole had evolved, its event horizon now rippling with complex mathematical patterns that seemed to write and rewrite themselves in space-time. As I watched, a new equation began forming at its core. Not a description of reality, but instructions for unmaking it. The reality anchor beacons started failing one by one, each lasting less time than the last. Their fields couldn't maintain stability against the growing distortions. The pattern was adapting to our every attempt to fight it. Back on the ship, I gathered the team. 3 days remained before our Earth joined the other one, becoming another data point in the entity's endless harvest. The patterns in reality itself were almost complete. We couldn't fight this with force. The other Earth had tried that, and now they existed only as quantum echoes. We needed to change the equation itself. I stared at the latest sensor readings, watching reality buckle under the weight of too many possibilities. The entity had spent millions of years perfecting this trap, using each civilization's knowledge against the next. Now it was our turn to either break the pattern or become part of it. The readings peaked at midnight. I watched the numbers climb on the main display, each new measurement confirming what the other Earth's data had predicted. The entity was no longer approaching. It had begun its final calculations. "All hands to stations," Roberts ordered through the ship-wide comm. 24 hours at most, I said, studying the time dilation curves. The wormhole's event horizon is fluctuating at higher frequencies. Once it reaches resonance with our universe's base wave function. I didn't need to finish. We'd all seen the data from the other Earth. Their final readings showed the same progression we were witnessing now, reality itself being solved like an equation, each pulse bringing the entity closer to the solution that would unmake everything. Our quantum field disruptor dominated the ship's rear deck, a maze of modified sensors and energy projectors salvaged from our research equipment. The device represented our last hope, built from our understanding of how the entity's patterns worked. The key isn't fighting it directly, I explained during the final briefing. Every Earth that tried to destroy the wormholes failed, because that's exactly what the entity expects. It feeds on our attempts to resist, incorporating each new strategy into its pattern. I pulled up the latest sensor readings. But look at what happens when we introduce quantum noise into its calculations. The patterns don't adapt, they stutter. The entity needs mathematical precision to complete its harvest. If we can corrupt its equation at the quantum level... The ship's alarms interrupted my explanation. New readings from the Mariana Trench showed massive gravitational distortions. The wormhole there had begun synchronizing with ours, their signatures harmonizing like coupled oscillators. "We need to move now," Robert said. "How close does the disruptor need to be?" I checked the calculations again. Within 50 meters of the primary wormhole. Any further, and the interference won't be strong enough to affect its core mathematics. The deployment took 3 hours. We positioned the disruptor array on a specially modified ROV, its power systems tied directly to the ship's reactors through superconducting cables. One shot was all we'd get. The energy requirements would burn out every system we had. I took the submersible down one last time to verify the targeting coordinates. The wormhole had transformed since my previous descent. Its surface now rippled with complex equations that seemed to extend into dimensions I couldn't quite perceive. "Primary target locked," I reported. Resonance patterns mapped and loaded into the disruptor's targeting computer. The entity's presence was undeniable now. Each pulse from the wormhole carried fragments of awareness, an intelligence focused with terrible purpose. It had done this countless times before, consuming reality after reality with mathematical precision. But this time would be different. The other Earth's scientists had fought it with force, trying to destroy what they didn't understand. We had learned from their failure. Our weapon wasn't designed to attack the entity. It would attack the very language it used to reshape reality. "Field integrity at 98%, Park reported from his station. Time dilation effects holding steady at 3 microseconds per meter within the target zone. I initialized the disruptor's main sequence. The device activated, its arrays aligning with the wormhole's geometry. Energy readings climbed as it built up to critical charge. The entity noticed. The wormhole's pulsing changed frequency, its patterns shifting to analyze this new variable. I watched as it began incorporating our device's signature into its calculations, just as it had done with every weapon ever used against it. "Not this time," I muttered, entering the final command sequence. The disruptor wasn't here to fight, it was here to speak. We had coded its output using the entity's own mathematical language, but with a crucial difference. Instead of pure patterns, we introduced controlled chaos. The blast, when it came, was silent. There was no explosion, no visible beam, just a pulse of quantum interference that rippled through space-time like a stone dropped in still water. The wormhole's surface shuddered as the corrupted mathematics hit its core. For 3 eternal seconds, nothing happened. Then the patterns began to break down. The perfect equations that formed the entity's framework became unstable, infected by our quantum noise. Like a computer virus attacking a program's base code, our corruption spread through its calculations. "Multiple field fluctuations detected," Park reported out. "The pattern is destabilizing across all linked realities." The entity fought back. New equations appeared within the wormhole, trying to isolate and correct the corruption. But our virus was designed to mutate with each attempt at solution, using the entity's own adaptive nature against it. The more it tried to solve our chaos, the deeper the corruption spread. "Primary wormhole showing signs of structural decay," I reported, watching the readings. "Entanglement between realities weakening. We need to get out of here before..." The warning indicators flared red. The wormhole's surface had begun to fracture, reality cracking under the strain of too many contradictory equations. Our virus had worked better than we'd hoped. The entity couldn't maintain its hold on our universe while its mathematical framework collapsed. The wormhole's final collapse sent a shockwave through the surrounding water. Our submersible tumbled in the turbulence, its instruments overloaded by the reality distortions. By the time I regained control, the anomaly was gone, as though it had never existed. Our sensors showed normal space-time curvature where the wormhole had been. The entity's patterns had been completely erased from our equations. The victory felt hollow as we ran our final checks. We had saved our Earth, but the cost was clear in the sensor logs. The bridges between realities had collapsed completely. The other Earth and all the rest, like it, remained trapped in their empty states, forever beyond our reach. I spent that night on the bridge watching the ocean through the windows. Somewhere out there, across an infinite gulf of collapsed possibilities, other versions of humanity were fighting the same battle. Some would win, some would lose, but the entity's perfect pattern was broken. It would need to evolve new mathematics before it could hunt again. The entity's influence had been completely erased from our reality. But as I filed my final report, I couldn't shake one haunting thought. We hadn't destroyed it. We had only taught it a new way to fail. Somewhere in the infinite darkness between universes, it was already learning from our defense, adapting its patterns to account for quantum corruption. The next time it found a suitable reality, its mathematics would be stronger. The ocean keeps its secrets well. But now we know what lurks in its depths. A patient predator that turns our own intelligence, our own curiosity against us. Each victory against it only sharpens its hunger, hones its methods. Perhaps that's the true horror. In fighting monsters, we teach them how to better hunt us. I still watch the deep-sea sensor readings every night, looking for patterns in the noise. Somewhere out there, in the vast mathematics of reality, the entity waits. And when it returns, I fear it will have learned far more from us than we learned from it.